Well, this is how I'm leaving this. I need to get some sandpaper. Need to inspect that real good with light. That's definitely had water in there and rusted. I need to sand that a little bit, try to get it cleared up. Definitely don't know what to do with this. I look to try to find something wrong with the gasket. I see a couple strange things where that thing was barely off right there, barely sealing. I have a little hole right there, could have been leaking over into this one and this one. Looked like they were both getting water in them, so I imagine this head gasket probably failed and it was getting water in there. So hopefully we can clean this up. I want to try to spray these injectors, spray this. Ooh. Oh, I guess that's supposed to be like that. But anyway, I'm going to clean these up and get a new head gasket at the minimum and just try to put this sucker back together, see if it'll run. We're going to have to get the pistons freed and decide whether we're just going to leave them alone. It just really seems like somebody's been in here, because usually there's a giant ridge on the top of this, so maybe they rebuilt it. Didn't do a good job. It's still got water in these jackets, so that leads me to believe the block is not leaking, but yet it leaked over here into these valleys somehow, oil valleys. And these are head bolts, head bolts. So these are water jackets, and this is oil. So if that came loose over here, these head bolts, and started letting water in there, that's where it would have got the water in there. So that's what we're going to try to get this freed up. Okay, that's kind of a wrap up. Basically took 4 hours to pull all those parts, pull the head, kind of got it cleaned up here, all the tools back in the truck. I got a little bucket of parts. That's what's bad about doing a project that you're not really planning on doing. I want to see if this tractor is worth saving or not before I move on. So there we go. Okay, it's been 24 hours. The diesel I poured in there is still holding, so to me that seems like it didn't hold in this middle chamber. But the water I put in there is still in the exact same level as it was when I left yesterday. So that means I would think this block is not leaking, or the water would have leaked out. So I'm kind of thinking this block is still good. So I'm going to drop the pan, and we're going to get these pistons moving, make sure that crank ain't broke. So we're going to take off the pan and inspect the crank, and take off the water pump. This should be a pretty easy deal. And that's all we're doing today. Well, that oil pump is pretty scary, but could be just cleaned out. I'm going to put this phone down and look up into there, make sure that nothing on that crank's busted. I don't think it is. That looks like that's on the upstroke. So this one could be hammered down, or the center one could be hammered down. That's what we're going to try to do, is hammer that sucker and get it spinning. See what we can do. Well, lighting sucks. That's the middle one. Basically took a 2x4 and put it under there, hammered on that little thread. Didn't take anything. That one came right out. Woo! Look at that jug. Look at that sucker. That's number 2. So let's put this in my number 2 pile. Let me get some more rags to put here on the floor. All right. So we can, those are nasty. I'm glad those came out, because worst case scenario, we can just clean all those up, clean everything, and put those back in if we need to, because those look like they have pretty good grip, weren't leaking. The bearings look pretty good, and the one said Ford Motor Company on it right there. FOMO Co. And ooh, that one don't look good at all. That's a bearing that's getting old. So that's number 2. Ooh, dude, getting hot. Oh well, let's keep going. New bearings, new rings, little rebuild kit. So let's push the other ones out. Again, sorry about the lighting. I'm trying to use a hose on one side, and we're just going to use the board, try to hammer that up out of there, see if we can move it. We'll do the same thing with this one. We'll try to hammer on that one. We'll put the hose on that. I got some little piece of hose to try to protect the threads, but you can't hammer on it and protect it. So that one's seated down on there. We'll try to push that one up, but we'll do this one. It looks like it's higher and it's already loose, so we'll go for that one. And that would be the problem if you didn't pull these pistons out and clean those rings, even if you were going to put them in, because the board and the hammer's holding it up, because it kept sliding back down. The rings aren't expanding. They're stuck in that position, so they just would not seal very good. So now I can pull that one up out of there. That's number 3. Okay, all 3 pistons are out. Theoretically, this tractor is in neutral and I can roll it, but I could not turn the engine. It's still locked up. So, not sure what the problem is. Maybe the starter's got it bound up. Maybe something else is broke inside. But right now, I should easily be able to turn this engine over with no pistons in there, and it still will not. I have no idea. I should be able to turn that engine over. So either something's bound up in the transmission or something's bound up in the engine, and I want to resolve that before I go spending money on this. Why I can't spin that crank. Now theoretically I should be able to put something on that nut, but there's really no room to do that. So the thing I'm going to take off next is the starter. Make sure that starter bindex isn't stuck in the out position and got that thing bound up. So that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, the starter only had 2 of the 3 bolts. Definitely looks like something was rubbing. I don't know. Let's try to turn it again. Well, from here I'm not sure what to do. I can't. Got the starter out, got the pistons out, and the crank still won't spin. It should be easy to spin. My next plan of attack would be to remove all this contraption so I could get to put a nut on there and try to spin that, because theoretically there's nothing that should be holding this. I could try to turn this flywheel right here with a pry bar or something. I guess I could try that, or put a block of wood in there and see if I could hammer on it. That would probably be better. I'm going to try that. I think I see it moving, but I guess what I could do is take off one main bearing at a time, kind of inspect it, because I'm going to need one. I can change them out. It looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, main bearings, because I need to inspect them, because if they're jacked, that's what's keeping it frozen. That could be a problem. So I really need to pull each one off, inspect it, put it back on. So that's what I'm going to do next from here. I'm just going to randomly pick one and we'll pull one off. Well, I've taken out 1, 2, 3. They all look good. This main one, I got the bolts out. It will not move. I can't get it to come out. So my thinking right now is that's seized up and I'm not going to be able to fix it, but I want to get this out to prove that. So I'm going to keep hammering on it, see if I can get that thing out. All right, that's a picture of the rear, and it's got 2 pins in it. I don't think you're going to pull that out. That's the seal. It's a giant. Number 13 is a giant seal, and it doesn't look like a split seal. So I don't know that you can get that rear main bearing cap out. 15 says rear bearing cap seals. I don't know what that is. Look like pins to me. Anyhow, that's probably the problem. That thing's probably not going to come out. Okay, not sure why it was stuck, but it's not stuck no more. Basically, I just took this big pry bar down in there, and now it moves really damn easy. So I'm not sure what the problem was. Just had some pretty easy to move now, so I don't know what the deal was, but it's moving. I'm not real thrilled about not being able to do that rear main. Maybe it'll wiggle loose. I'm going to put the 2 bolts back in it, and I'd like to put the starter back on it and put some power to it and see if we can turn that son of a gun over. Okay, these injectors are pretty much stuck in there. I don't know how you'd ever get them out, but this one was frozen in there. Basically, I just hammered on the tip of it and drove it down in there. These other ones, the only reason I was able to get them out is because they didn't have the little screw on there. But this one would not come out because you couldn't get a twist on it to drive it, and it's rusted up in there. So now that I've driven it down there, I also see that I tried to hammer just on the tip of that. Well, that broke off this middle one, so that was a bad test. So I don't know if that's going to affect it, but I really wanted to get them out, change the seals, clean them up, so I could sand this head and clean it up too. All right, I was able to pressure wash this. It looks like this has been damaged and welded at some point. Must have ran ashore on something, and I pressure washed them, cleaned them up. We're going to take these valves out and polish them and put them back in and put the new seals. I think it may come with a crush washer. That thing looks like it's now that I've driven that up in there, that is diesel on the end of that, because it drove that up in there. Now it's not sealing, maybe because I hit it with that screwdriver. Anyway, now at least we'll be able to get the damn thing out if it doesn't work and replace it. These are the springs, of course, the valves, injectors. They were super hard to get out. The thermostat housing and all the dirt that came out of the exhaust valves, but I've cleaned them up. Clean those up with a screwdriver to get all the dirt, carbon chunks out of it. All this on the floor. All of the sealing surfaces look pretty good. I'm going to clean up each one of these valves, get all the carbon off of them, but they all look pretty good. The sealing surfaces look pretty good. So we're going to put all this stuff back together, clean it, put it back together, sand it, paint it, clean it, paint it, put it back together. Alright, pressure wash parts. I pressure washed them, degreased them. I didn't do the pistons, wasn't planning on it. I'm going to put the new bearings in it and polish stuff up and new rings. I'm going to clean all those ring things, take them apart. We're going to clean this oil pump, but not with water. We're going to put on a new filter. We'll clean all that, degrease it all. And we're going to put this back together as quickly as possible. So I'm going to get all these surfaces sanded. And then we'll put this, valves back in. I need to get them back in. I don't like having all these parts laying around. Okay, so far I've sanded this with 150, but right here's a high spot, and right there where these things mesh together. So I'm going to take some 80 grit and try to smooth that out, and I want to get rid of this dirt off of these spots. So I need to just spot do this, and then we're going to see if we can get this a little bit smoother, the whole thing. Probably this 150 is pretty damn smooth, so I don't know if when I hit this with this 80, maybe it'll be more what I'm looking for. Alright, this is really kind of hokey, but it is what it is. These little spots were full of rust. Now the rust has kind of got them out. I hated to do that, but you got to sand the dirt off. If you don't sand this dirt off and mill that off flat, it's going to leak. So, I mean, it kind of sucks to have to spot sand it. Like that was a dirty spot. It needs to be sanded some more. That's not good enough. So we're going to hit this again, try to get it smoother, flatten out, smooth it out so it won't leak. Alright, this isn't perfect, but that's pretty flat. So you're just going to lightly put it on there and let it pushing real hard. I'm just letting it float on there to knock off all the high spots the best I can. So that's all I got to work with, so that's what I got to do. Well, that's what I'm going with on that. It ain't perfect, but I think that'll reseal. If that had a blown head gasket, I'm sure not seeing where it leaked, but this old gasket pretty nasty, so I just don't see where it might have blown out. I guess those hot spots, maybe right there, if that's where the oil bolt was. I don't know. But we're going to put a new gasket on there. We're going to find out. Okay, just got done cleaning on that, working on the valves, and guess what? My little kit came in. National Power with the head gaskets. But basically, I needed these gaskets to put the valves back in. I want to do that first thing, get that valves back in there. And the it's got the injector seals, got the copper washers and the seals, so I could theoretically put those back in, put the injectors back in too. And so that's probably what I'll do. Get this thing put back together a little bit and get some paint on it. Alright, that's how I polish a valve. Just chuck them up in there, freaking spin them, run them on sandpaper. That's about how they come out. So basically it's just going to be polished. You're just going to polish all the dirt off of them. I use a screwdriver first, get off all the dirt. Then I got some 80 grit. I just let that spin around on your sandpaper, and I try to do that angle as the angle. I just clean it up. That's all you can really do is clean them up. So just to polish.